there because of various messages I was getting, and I felt that it would be better if we had extra security. But what I'm more concerned about is my family, because in some of the social media messages, my children are mentioned and so on. So, but this is par for the course. The Israeli agents, the intelligence services, is how they behave, and they seek to intimidate you. So we must not be intimidated. There is a cause that is underway. The people of the world and of Palestine didn't draw back when the apartheid state was at its worst. They stood with the liberation movement. So we can't stand back now. We must be with them. And I think one of the things we must not allow is a failure of courage. It's extremely important that we continue with this. We talk to the South African people. They understand why it is we have taken up this moral cause.
That's Naledi Pandor, the South African Foreign Affairs Minister, addressing the media on threats a family has been receiving from the Israelis. That speech was delivered on the 9th of February 2024 while she was in Cape Town. The story on the Israeli threats against Naledi Pandor's family have been carried out by various media outlets in South Africa and outside of South Africa. And so the threats from the Israelis are specifically directed at Naledi Pandor herself. In her capacity as Foreign Affairs Minister, she has been overseeing the South African legal team at the International Court of Justice. Now it has to be remembered that on the 29th of December last year, South Africa brought its case to the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of committing acts that amounted to genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. In its initial ruling on the 26th of January, 2 weeks after South Africa had began its course its case against the Israelis, the International Court of Justice decided the case in South Africa's favor and ordered Israel to stop the indiscriminate killing of Palestinians. And the second aspect of the order was that the Israelis had to stop causing physical or mental harm on Palestinians. And then the third aspect of the order was that the Israelis had to stop imposing conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction of the Palestinians. Now, the question that has to be asked is whether the Israelis, in the light of all this, are they in a position to carry out the threats against Naledi Pandor's family as well as Naledi Pandor herself? Now, the Mossad has been known to capture and then sometimes to assassinate individuals who have been deemed to pose a threat to the state of Israel's interest. The most famous case is that of Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi who had been living in Argentina since World War II and was then captured and taken to Israel to face trial. I have managed to access the website from the Jewish Virtual Library, and it's essentially lists the remit of the Israeli intelligence services and the known as the Mossad in Hebrew. And the Mossad is one of the it lists as Israel the Mossad success as the capture of Adolf Eichmann, and so when actually one has gone through material like this, what has to be the threat is actually real, and the South Africans have actually increased Naledi Pando's security, and she herself has asked the police minister Becky Cele to increase security to both the family and herself. And then the other issue is related to the threats against Naledi Pando and their families. What the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is given media briefings on the possibility that Israel might actually end up interfering with South African elections. South Africa is holding elections in August 2024, and most analysts and observers have predicted that the ANC might actually end up with majority in parliament. And of course, the South Africans, they do not hold direct presidential elections. They elect MPs to parliament, and then the party with the majority of seats in parliament then goes on to choose who is going to be the president. Now, since the democratic dispensation of 1994, the ANC, the African National Congress, that is the party that has been in power since 1994, and it has won all the elections that have been held in South Africa since that time. And President Ramaphosa, well, I can actually say he is scared of the threat of interfering in elections, and he was talking of regime change, that the Israelis are operating to cause regime change in South Africa. Now, that's a bit, well, it's coming from a head of state in South Africa, you know, that's would set alarm bells ringing, you know. Besides the threat of the Israelis interfering with elections, we have heard from people like Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. Whenever they face the threat, you know, you would talk of like the Western countries wanting to impose regime change on his government in Zimbabwe. Now, well, that's besides the point. Of course, there is evidence that Israel has interfered with elections in the past. An individual by the name of Tal Hanan has boasted that he has interfered with about 30 elections around the world using methods like hacking, sabotage, and what has been referred to automated disinformation. I have managed to access the website of the Haaretz newspaper in Israel. It's a respected newspaper in Israel, and it essentially describes what the activities of Tal Hanan and his security company is called Team George, and at least the activities as hacking, that is messaging apps and email accounts, and then at least planting of materials in compromised accounts. And I would think this refers to paying off people to interfere with the elections in various countries. And then there is what is called a hack and leak of real or forged materials, and then there is a creation of an army of online avatars, that is fake accounts used for manipulating opinion on social media. And then there is the issue of voter suppression and disrupting elections. And then the fifth and last one is undermining election result with stop the steal style campaigns. And I would think, this is of special significance to what Ramaphosa has been alleging that the Israel intend to do in South Africa. And now the South Africans obviously believe in they take the threat to be real, and they have actually increased the security around the conducting of elections, as well as those officers of the state who are going to carry out the elections themselves. And President Ramaphosa has tasked the security services with ensuring that the elections in August 2024 are free of interference. So now the other issue is that of the economic backlash faced by South Africa from its trading partners, especially the United States. An individual by the name of Oscar van Heerden, he is a professor of African diplomacy at the University of Johannesburg, has suggested that South Africa may face a backlash in terms of trade and might end up losing 876 billion worth of trade because of the Israel genocide case, and 876 billion is worth about like 15 billion US dollars. And Van Heerden himself has...
I talk of embarrassment for the Biden administration and Congress, because you recall, Polly, that it's Congress, more than 200 members of Congress actually indicated that they thought that South Africa's application is baseless, it's meritless, and factually not correct. And unfortunately, the court has now ruled in South Africa's favor, embarrassing Congress and members of Congress, including the Biden administration. And so I make the point that they are certainly not going to take that sitting down. There are going to be repercussions, and it is likely, not immediate, but there will be repercussions, because we've decided to embarrass the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, as well as the Israelis. And so I do think there's going to be blowback. As to whether the South African government and the ANC-led government is ready for that blowback, we will have to see. We don't know what form it will take, but I do mention a few examples in my article where I talk, for example, of the fact that the AGOA agreement with the United States still needs to be ratified by Congress. There was a workshop, a session, blows were exchanged. There was agreement on the agreement, and that was now taken back to the United States as to whether the Congress will ratify it in lieu of the ruling from the ICJ.
Van Heerden talks of AGOA, and AGOA refers to African Growth and Opportunity Act. It's a piece of legislation put into place by the American Congress, and its use or its purpose has ostensibly been to promote trade between the United States and African countries, but in real life its purpose has been to penalize African states who act against, or who are perceived to act against, the interests of the United States. In the recent past, the United States has taken off 4 African countries from AGOA, and the countries are Uganda, Gabon, Central African Republic, and Niger, and they have been penalized for human rights violations and what has been referred to as lack of democratic progress. Now, in the case of South Africa, South Africa has has been exporting to the United States cars, textiles, and its clothing industries have benefited from tariff-free access to the United States. And of course, South Africa is the United States' biggest trading partner on the African continent, and its exports have been valued at 15 billion American dollars in 2022. And in the recent past, in May to be precise, South Africa status as a favored nation with the Americans came under real threat, and this time the problem was with what the Americans referred to as weapon smuggling to the Russians. In this case, a Russian naval ship had docked at the Simonstown naval station in near Cape Town, and in the middle of the night, and it had loaded armaments intended to be used by the Russians in Ukraine, and the Americans threatened to use to take off South Africa off AGOA, and the Ramaphosa's government ended up lobbying US officials to let South African remain on AGOA, and that's the issue about the backlash faced by South Africa because of its case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Thank you so much for listening to this recording. If you like the material discussed in this recording, please subscribe and give me some likes. Thank you. Bye.